Most people believe 65 is the perfect age to retire. It's on every calculator, every HR brochure, every retirement planning guide sitting on the corner of your desk. That belief might be killing them. Researchers tracked over 1.5 million deaths across the United States, and what the data showed should stop you cold. Male mortality jumps by 2% the moment a man turns 62. Not because he's old, because he stopped. And here's the part almost nobody talks about. Working until 65, the safe age, carries its own mortality tax. So what is the perfect age to retire? The data has an answer, but it isn't a single number. It's a sequence of 3 green lights, and by the end of this video you'll know exactly how to check each one. So here's where this video is headed. The perfect age to retire isn't 62, 65, or 67. It's a sequence. 3 green lights that have to turn at the same time. Structure, health window, insurance bridge. When all 3 line up, that's your perfect age. Before we get to the scorecard at the end, we have to bury 2 myths. One about retiring too early, and one about retiring too late. The data kills both. Most people think one is safer than the other. Wrong. They're 2 different ways of losing the same 10 years. The first study is from the National Bureau of Economic Research. They pulled decades of mortality records and isolated men who walked out of the workforce right at 62. The pattern was clean. A measurable jump in death rates, concentrated in the 12 months after they left. 2% sounds abstract. Scale it across every American man turning 62 in a given year, and the number stops being a statistic. It becomes thousands of additional deaths. That's not a rounding error. That's a pattern. Here's the nuance most videos miss. The spike did not come from men who retired because they were already sick. It hit hardest among men with no structure to walk into, no volunteer shift, no part-time consulting gig, no community on the calendar, no weekly tennis match. Single men without a college degree were hit the worst. The common thread wasn't frailty. It was vacuum. So the variable was never age. The variable was what came next. The data does not say 62 is too early. The data says 62 with nothing to walk into is dangerous. Now you might think the obvious move is to just keep working. Stay on the payroll, stay alive. But here's where the other study group lands its punch. A meta-analysis from Amsterdam UMC pulled data from 25 separate studies. The finding was clean. People who retired right on time, the safe statutory age, died sooner than those who kept working. Not by a lot, but enough to matter. A newer Duke study from 2024 added the detail that changes everything. Each additional year in retirement was linked to a 0.9 percentage point bump in mortality risk. And that effect compounds. Run the math. Retire 10 years and you're stacking roughly 9 additional percentage points of risk on top of your baseline. That's not trivial. In some age brackets, that's comparable to the risk profile of long-term smoking. Before you spiral, read the caveat because it rewrites the whole picture. Kept working did not mean grinding 60-hour weeks at the same desk you've hated for 30 years. The retirees who lived longer looked like this. A 67-year-old former engineer showing up at his old firm 2 mornings a week to mentor junior staff. A 65-year-old teacher running a Saturday pottery class at the community center. A married couple opening a small woodworking shop out of the garage, selling 3 or 4 pieces a month at the local craft fair. None of them needed the income. All of them needed the rhythm. They stayed engaged. They didn't stay employed in any traditional sense. There's a biology underneath this. A job you hate floods your body with cortisol. Sustained cortisol means inflammation, disrupted sleep, higher cardiovascular risk. Passion project does the opposite. Regular social contact raises oxytocin. Cognitive novelty, learning a new glaze, training a junior colleague, figuring out a new invoice system, keeps neural plasticity humming into your 70s. The difference between working longer and staying engaged isn't semantic. It's neurochemical. So the data converges on a window, not a single magical age. A range, roughly 65 to 68, where structure, health, and insurance are most likely to line up at the same time. Think of it as the statistical sweet spot for most Americans. But the sweet spot only matters if you pass all 3 green lights, which is where we're headed. And everything below is general financial education, not personalized advice. Always run your own numbers with a qualified professional. Now let's talk about money, because this is where most people get it backwards. Most people think retirement spending is a flat line. Wrong. It follows a curve researchers call the retirement spending smile, and your post-work life breaks into 3 completely different chapters. The first is the go-go phase, roughly 60 to 72. You're healthy. The alarm is optional. So you spend. You book the trip. You remodel the kitchen. You pick up golf or pottery or both. Bureau of Labor Statistics data shows Americans between 65 and 74 pour about 40% of their budget into discretionary spending, travel, dining, entertainment. That's often more than you spent while you were earning. Most people don't plan for that. Then the slow-go phase lands, roughly 72 to 82. The passport still works, but the body starts negotiating. Spending eases down by about 1% a year. The couch starts winning more often than the airport. Then the no-go phase, 82 and beyond. Spending shoots back up, but not for fun. Healthcare does the heavy lifting. Out-of-pocket medical costs for this bracket run north of $5,700 a year according to BLS data, before long-term care enters the conversation. Most people plan retirement like one long chapter. It's 3 different movies. A flatline projection either starves the go-go years or runs out before the no-go bills hit. The perfect age isn't about having enough. It's about having enough for the right phase. Quick pause: if you haven't split your projection into go-go, slow-go, and no-go buckets, do it this week. I've linked a free 3-phase retirement budget worksheet in the description. Pin it, fill it out over coffee this weekend, then come back, because the rest of this video lands harder once you've seen your own numbers. Now plant this in your head, because you won't be able to unhear it. Between 60 and 80, you have roughly 1,040 weeks. 1,000 weeks. That's the window where you are statistically likely to be healthy enough to travel, strong enough to sit on the floor with a grandchild, sharp enough to remember every second of it. The World Health Organization publishes a metric called healthy life expectancy. For Americans, it sits around 63 to 67 years. Total life expectancy sits near 77 to 78. That's a 10 to 14-year gap where you are technically alive but not living the way you imagined. Every year you keep working past 60 isn't a year shaved off retirement. It's a year shaved off the only retirement that counts, the healthy stretch. Put numbers on it. Retire at 60. About 1,040 weeks in the window. At 63, 884. At 65, 780. At 67, 676. Survey after survey of retirees who delayed says the same thing. They wished they'd left 3 to 5 years earlier. Not because the money ran out, because the energy did. They had the savings. They didn't have the knees. Put a price on it. Median American household income in retirement is about $50,000 a year. That's roughly what 1 extra year of working earns you. Now ask the data. What's the market rate for 52 healthy weeks? There isn't one. The Bureau of Labor Statistics can price your labor. Cannot price your knees. One more thing most finance channels won't say out loud. If you've been quietly leaning toward retiring at 63 or 64, and every calculator on the internet keeps telling you to wait until 67, and you've felt guilty for wanting to leave earlier, the mortality data and the healthy life expectancy data are giving you permission. You're not being reckless. You're reading the right spreadsheet. The people who regret their timing are overwhelmingly the ones who waited too long, not the ones who left a year or 2 early with a plan. Now the piece almost nobody talks about, and it's the most expensive one. Most people think Social Security is the big retirement number. Wrong. At 65, Medicare kicks in, and the entire cost architecture of your healthcare rearranges. Retire before 65 and you're stranded in the coverage gap. No employer plan. No Medicare. You need bridge insurance, ACA Marketplace, Cobra, private, and depending on where you live, that bridge runs $500 to $2,000 a month per person. Picture this. You retire at 61. From 61 to 65 is 48 months. At $1,200 a month for a couple, which is a reasonable midpoint, that's $57,600 out of pocket before a single doctor's visit. If your portfolio is $1 million and you're pulling the standard 4%, that bridge ate nearly a year and a half of your safe withdrawal. Gone. To premiums. Research from the Center for Retirement Research at Boston College sharpens the knife. For early retirees without employer coverage, Out-of-pocket healthcare can swallow 10 to 60% of retirement income. The hardest hit 5% of households lose 60 cents on every dollar to medical spending. That's not a budget line. That's a rewrite of the entire plan. You'd expect retiring after 65 to solve it. But here's the trap. Miss your Medicare Part B initial enrollment window, the 7-month corridor around your 65th birthday, and you get hit with a permanent late enrollment penalty. 10% on top of your Part B premium for every 12 months you were eligible and didn't sign up. Permanent. Run the scenario. You're 67, still working, finally go to enroll. You're 2 years late. The base Part B premium is around $175 a month. Plus 20% is an extra $35 a month. That's $420 a year. Live to 90 and you've paid roughly $9,660 in penalties for not Googling the enrollment window once. And it gets worse. Medicare doesn't cover dental, vision, hearing, or long-term care, so you'll need Medigap or Medicare Advantage on top. And if your retirement income crosses certain thresholds, you'll owe IRMAA surcharges on Part B and Part D, sometimes hundreds of dollars more per month, triggered by a single big Roth conversion or a strong market year. Nobody warns you. The envelope just shows up. So after the mortality data, the spending curve, the 1,000-week window, and the Medicare gauntlet, what is the perfect age? The data won't give you a number. It gives you a sequence. 3 independent green lights, all of which have to turn at the same moment. Green light 1 is structure, not I'll travel. Specifically, do you know what you're doing on the first Monday morning after you stop? Here's the failure case. A man retires at 62 with a sound portfolio. 3 months in, Monday starts feeling like Sunday, Sunday starts feeling like Monday, and eventually the days lose their edges entirely. He checks email twice before breakfast out of habit. He naps at 11 a.m. because there's no reason not to. The NBER data on post-retirement mortality isn't really about money. It's about identity vacuum. The hardest question in retirement isn't, how much do I need? It's, who am I when the business card goes away? If you've built your identity around a title, retirement won't feel like freedom. It will feel like erasure. Structure, a part-time role, a volunteer shift, a weekly class, is what keeps Monday, Monday. Green light 2 is the health window. 2 68-year-old men. Same zip code, same net worth. One hikes Half Dome last summer with his son. The other can't carry his own suitcase through the airport anymore. Same age. Completely different retirement. The 1,000-week math doesn't care about your 401k balance. Every year you delay, you're spending down the only asset no advisor can rebuild. Don't optimize for maximum savings. Optimize for maximum overlap between savings and physical capacity. Green light 3 is the insurance bridge. 2 couples, both retiring at 63. Couple A budgeted $1,500 a month for ACA coverage until Medicare, scheduled their Part B enrollment window on the calendar for age 65, and built the whole thing into their withdrawal plan. Couple B assumed, we'll figure it out. Got blindsided by $2,100 a month premiums when one of them developed a manageable condition, and burned through 3 years of planned travel money in 18 months. Same age, same savings. Wildly different outcomes because only one couple checked the third light. When all 3 lights turn green at the same time, that's your perfect age. If you wait too long for all 3 to align perfectly, one will turn red. It's almost always green light 2. Your health does not wait for your spreadsheet to balance. But here's the encouraging part. Retirees who pass all 3 checks consistently report dramatically higher life satisfaction than peers still grinding into their late 60s. The data isn't doom. It's a roadmap. Fill the vacuum, protect the window, bridge the insurance, you win. And if you've been running numbers for 2 years and still can't decide, you're not bad at math. You're in analysis paralysis. The data makes this simpler, not harder. Here's the scorecard. Rate each light 0 for red, 5 for yellow, 10 for green. Structure 0, 5, or 10. Health window 0, 5, or 10. Insurance bridge 0, 5, or 10. Add them up. 25 to 30 means go this year. 15 to 24 means you have 1 or 2 fixes before you pull the trigger. Below 15 means stop staring at the calendar and start closing the gaps. Drop your 3-light score in the comments, structure, health, insurance, and tell me your total. Share this with the person who's going to retire alongside you, because this only works if both of you pass the check. And if you want the full 3-light self-audit checklist plus the phase budget worksheet, the link's in the description. I read every comment. Subscribe and I'll see you in the next one.